This video is going to explore and review the fundamental principle of counting. Now we're going to look at the probability scale, which measures the likelihood of something happening. Now let's look at these two events. I'm going to call them Event A and Event B. Event A says that you will celebrate your 200th birthday tomorrow. Well, based on our probability scale, we know that that's impossible because there's nobody here who's 199 years old. So we would say that Event A falls here at 0. It's impossible. There is no chance it will happen. Now the next event is Event B, and that's if you toss a coin, you will get heads. Well, if we look at the outcomes for Event B, it's heads or tails. So you have a 1 in 2 chance. So what we say there is you have a 50-50 chance of tossing a coin and getting heads. First, we need to become familiar with the language of probability. These are words that we're going to come across within questions. So a trial is the act of doing the experiment. For example, if I said that I flipped a coin 4 times, my trial is 4 because it's the number of times that I performed the experiment. Therefore, the definition for experiment becomes the act of carrying out an action. So in my example, flipping the coin. Now the outcome is the results of that. Well, if I flip a €1 coin, I either get heads or I get tails. So outcome is the result of a trial. Some trials will have multiple outcomes, others not so many. And then basically all of the possible outcomes is referred to as the sample space. And I'm going to show you examples of sample spaces in the video. The first way that you can gather a sample space from an experiment with a number of trials is two-way tables. And we're going to look through an example of that now. And then you're going to be brought to an example of a tree diagram. First up, we have tree diagrams. Although these were quite tricky at the start, we're going to work through this example here now, and hopefully they'll be a lot clearer for you going into the test. So first of all, we need to find out how many outcomes do we have and what are the number of trials. So going over here and looking at our question, a coloured spinner like the one shown below is spun 3 times. So we now know that 3 would more than likely represent the number of trials. Reading it again and looking at the picture, we can also see that there is green and blue. So green and blue must be our number of outcomes. So based on this, we have green and blue as our option. And we have spun the spinner 3 times. So I have completed the tree diagram below. We start off with our first spin. We can land on a blue or a green. On our next spin then, we can also land on blue or green. And when we spin it a second time, we can land on blue or green. If we spin the spinner 3 more times, we can also land on a blue or a green, a blue or a green, a blue or a green, or a blue or a green. So based on that, we can measure what could be our possible outcomes from spinning the spinner. To measure this then, we'll draw arrows. So you start on your first spin, you could get a blue. Second spin, you could also land on a blue. And on the third spin, you could land on a blue. So our combination would be blue, blue, blue. In the same way then, we can spin it and land on a blue, land on a blue again, or land on a green. So our combination would then be blue, blue, and green. Let's see if you can finish off the rest of the outcomes. And here we have our list of outcomes based on our tree diagram. So now we're going to look at two-way tables. In this example, we're flipping a coin and we are also spinning a spinner. So to ensure that we're very accurate with our list of outcomes, we create a two-way table. Along the side here, I will have the coin and my outcomes are either heads or tails. And judging by the picture over here, I'm told that my spinner will land on either the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9. These are known as my possible outcomes. And what we need to find out are all the different combinations of those outcomes. To fill in a two-way table, it's very straightforward. We follow the arrows. So we come up from H, we'll come across to 1, and we'll come down and we find H1. And in the exact same way, we will come up from T, across to 1, and down a little bit further to T1. And you will start to begin to see a pattern emerging. T1 then becomes T2, T3, T4 and so on. And in the exact same way we have H2, H3, H4 and so on again. Each white box are all the different types of outcomes. And in a question, you need to list all of these outcomes after you've completed your two-way table. For example, if we were to list all the outcomes of this experiment, it would be H1 followed by a H2, H3, H4 and so on. Take a minute now to count up how many outcomes could we possibly have from this experiment. From adding up all of these boxes at the bottom and all of these boxes on the top, we know that we must have 18 outcomes. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Or you could have added 9 and 9.